a writer who spent his career listening to and telling the story of feisty people and groups working to address a wide range of social issues, including education, crime, and housing. He's a consultant who writes for nonprofits and universities and has also worked as a journalist. He claims to have never illegally declassified government documents, lied about an election, or boasted that he's the greatest president in the history of the country. Thank you for doing that. He wants to share a personal story or two with you. He's going to share one tonight. Please put your hands together for Dan Barrett!
I was 6 years old the first time he said it to me. This is our year. Well, a little context. My dad and I were watching the Cubs. They were terrible. They were in last place. And he said it again. This is our year. I had a somewhat developed sense of irony and said, are you serious? Then my dad pulled out his hand. He said, hold my hand. So I held his hand. He said, this is the only way we're going to win this game, is if we hold hands. You know, that's the way it works. He thought it was based on science, okay? And the Cubs lost. But there was a silver lining there, because I learned so much from my father, because nobody I ever met could curse like my father. He was so profane and so creative. I was a very impressionable 6-year-old, very sensitive, and when I heard these words from him, I thought, this is great. And I thought, why should I have to go to school when I can learn everything I need to at home? So, a few weeks later, we're watching the game again, and my dad's like, hand! I said, okay, and we hold hands. And the Cubs won the game. And my father was like a 4-year-old at a birthday party who had a big vat of frosting in front of him. He went ballistic. It was amazing. And then he stopped, got very serious, looked at me and said, Dan, whatever you do in this life, always listen to your old man. Okay, all right. So this went on for 40 years. And I'm watching the Cubs with him another time, and he's like, you know, hand. And I said, Dad, I don't want to hold your hand. I'm 45 years old. So he says, oh, so you're all grown up now. I get it. You're too old to hold your dad's hand. What are you, some kind of a schmuck? I said, no, Dad, I just don't want to hold your hand right now, okay? And he said, he got to my heart and he said, but this is a big game. We're playing the Cardinals. So we held hands. Cubs lost the game. My dad died 5 years later, and that week my mom gave me a bag of his ashes. And a few days later, my sister Wendy and I went to the ballpark and distributed these ashes and held hands and watched the Cubs, and they won.
Oh my God.
I distributed the ashes everywhere. I even distributed them in the men's bathroom at Wrigley Field. Now you may wonder, with good reason, why the hell would you do that? And the answer is, that bathroom gave my father a lot more relief than the Cubs ever did. And as I left that park that day, I thought, you know, something is not quite right here. My father's going to be on that grass in right field complaining about the Cubs pitching and hitting and fielding. I got to come back here when the Cubs win the pennant or the World Series, which I knew might be never. So I forgot about it for a few years. The team was terrible. And then, August of 2015, I'm watching a game on TV, and Jay Carrietta of the Cubs is pitching a great game, and I called upstairs to my kids, and I said, "Kids, come on downstairs, I need you." And they came downstairs. Hand. They knew the drill. They held my hand. And the Cubs got a no-hitter and won the game. And I said, "It works. Always listen to your old man." So about a year later, it's actually October of 2016, a Saturday afternoon, the Cubs have a chance that night to win the National League pennant against the Dodgers. I'm going to the game with my friend Mike, who is about 2 feet away from me right now. And I went to the dresser in the bedroom and opened up the top drawer. And from left to right, it was socks, underwear, bag of Dad's ashes. So we go to the ballpark. We're watching this game. And my phone is going ping, 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 ping. It's like my mom, my sisters, my brothers, my nieces and nephews, all sending texts, all telling each other to hold hands, all a little bit, I don't want to say crazy, emotionally unstable at that moment. And the Cubs win the game, and they win the pennant. And it was so emotional, it was almost like a hush around the ballpark. And I pulled out this bag of ashes, and I'm like, "Dad, we won the pennant, we're going to the World Series." And I could hear my dad talking to me, and he was crying, and he was the most emotional person I've ever met. And he was like, "This is just amazing, Dad, I love you, this is so great." And then he stopped and he said, "Who's pitching the first game Tuesday?" I said, "I don't know yet, Dad, probably John Lester." And then we were just kind of amazed. And I know what some people here are thinking, they're thinking, yeah, it was an exciting game and it was fun and sports can bring people together, but Dan, isn't it a little strange for you to be talking to a bag of your dad's ashes? And I said, I get that, but at that moment, my dad and I were having a pretty good conversation. So we go downstairs, and I'm ready to throw these ashes onto the field. And I take a handful of the ashes, throw them towards the right field corner, and the wind blew them right back into my face. I'm wiping the ashes off my cheek, my chin, my mouth, my nose, and I'm thinking, I know my dad and I were close, but not this close. So there were still a couple of obstacles. I look at the field, and it's filled with security guards, and I'm like thinking, I could get arrested for doing this. I could be fined for this. And I thought, I don't want that to happen. I gotta save my money for something important, like a ticket to the World Series game, or, I don't know, food for my kids or something like that. But nobody was looking at me. I felt kind of ignored, honestly, but that's okay. And then I had to think about the wind. I'd forgotten about it before. I was too excited. And I looked up, and you can tell from the flags in the outfield of Wrigley Field whether the wind's blowing left to right, right to left. whether home runs are going to be flying out of the park or ashes are going to be flying onto it, okay? And the wind is blowing. And I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. Just my luck. And I looked up and I just said, just in that moment, I said, God, could you just please stop the wind for 5 seconds, please? And I know what some people are thinking. They're thinking, Dan, God has other things to do besides grant favors for baseball fans. And I'm like what? And I look up again, and the wind had stopped blowing. And I looked up and I said, thank you. I knew you were a Cub fan. And I reach into the bag and pull out a handful of my dad. My dad was the least patient person I've ever met as well. And I could tell he was like, hey, can we wrap this thing up, kid? We got a game on Tuesday. Come on, let's go. I said, Dad, I got this. And I threw the ashes onto the field. And I watched them descend onto the field like it was the first snowfall of winter. It was beautiful, and landed on the grass. And I looked at it and I said to no one in particular, but everyone, love you, Dad. And you know what? This is our year.
And we can hear it from all our storytellers like Dan Barrett, Anna McKinley, Eric Peterson, Jessica Gamalowski, and Haley Isom. Did you all have fun tonight? Thank you so much for being here. We so appreciate you being here to take these stories in. This doesn't work without you. I say this every month, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. Without listeners, storytelling is extremely weird. Thanks for making it not weird tonight. Again, you being here to take these in is what it's all about. Thank you so much for the gift of your presence.